Welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Y'all, I haven't been this excited for a show in a long time. And the reason for that is because this conversation is not just the topic is so important, but the individual here joining us is really one to be admired, to follow, to know. And Dustin, Lunde, I am so grateful for you joining us here today. You've been through a whole transformation in and of yourself. And now you're working through guiding entrepreneurs to kind of do the same and model the success that you've had, but in a really individual basis, based off of their calling, based on their individual potential, and based on their identity. And the thing I think I love most about what you do is that you really help them uncover the beliefs, then the habits and the identities that are necessary for that transformation. So I'm excited for our conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Christine. I'm super excited too. And thanks for the lovely, warm intro.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, Dustin, we met a couple months ago, and we were just chatting a couple weeks ago and found ourselves here today. And, I asked you kind of what's on your heart right now and what has been kind of coming up for you in conversations with your coach as you're coaching other people. And frankly, I think the best coaches have their own. So I appreciate that you actually are in the arena to reference Theodore Roosevelt with his speech in 1914. But I'd love to hear, how did you really come to find yourself in the arena to begin with? And then we'll kind of get to this whole conversation around how do we move into a place of worthiness from a position of unworthiness?
Yeah, for sure. Which arena? The coaching arena?
Say again.
I said, which arena? The coaching arena? The business arena?
Man, I'd love to know the arena of the soul where you had to do your own work and kind of confront the man in the mirror.
Yeah. So good gosh, where to even begin there? So if I take us way back, when I was a young lad, I was just a young guy after God's heart, and trying to make my friends, family, everybody happy and fill their cups, and really just to be liked at the end of the day. And through life circumstances, a lot of things changed in my early teenage years, and I think that's right around the time where you really get exposed to young adulthood and the realities of what people think they want, everything else. Then you get molded and all these things, and I went from this just really kind, caring, compassionate individual to somebody who was just desperately seeking validation from other people. And so as I moved into adulthood and careers and all that great stuff, it was what are the things that I can do that can get that approval. And so a lot of that was just this external success that our lovely Western civilization points at. And I'm like, well, if I do these things and I build these businesses and make this much money and get married and have children and buy all this nice stuff and put dollars and cents in my bank account, then I will be liked. And so I went down this interesting rabbit hole, we'll call it the first part of life, where I was acquiring and doing and achieving. And what was so interesting about it is the more that I was accomplishing, the bigger the void that I was actually creating. And it seemed like I should have been happy and had joy, and I didn't. And so I was on this constant pursuit of more. And what is the next thing that I can achieve? Because then maybe that thing will make me happy. And a couple of years ago, again, on the surface, all things looked really good. Two businesses in the 7+ figure range, young guy, beautiful family, all the things. And then life just came crashing down. And a gentleman that I had met previously, we were discussing this idea of transformative work and everything else, because I knew there was a void. I knew something was just off. And I'll never forget, he mentioned to me, he was like, generally it's not, if you need to do this, it is when. And most people, unfortunately, decide when it's too late, and it's after death, disease, or divorce. And only 2 of those you can come back from. And so all of the sudden, I found myself facing 2 out of the 3 of those things. And I just said, something has got to give. I have got to change. And I think what was weighing on me so much was I knew I was a good person. I was just consistently doing things that were out of alignment with where my heart truly was.
Wow. So, one, thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's interesting. I think so. I think that narrative of I just wanted to love people, or I just wanted to be good, or I just wanted to serve. I actually find that that's actually way more, thank God it's way more common than we realize. And at the same time, man, is that it's weird. It's like that hasn't actually done the thing that we hoped it would, or that it promised it
No.
would bring that inner fulfillment. And I'd love to hear kind of your reasoning for why, Dustin, because I think that there is this whole mantra around it's better to give than to receive. And this whole concept, growing up, we had a mantra, which was God first, others second, me third. And I found that needed to actually change later on in my 20s. And so I just would love to hear, why was giving not actually, why didn't it fill that void? Because that's kind of what is promised, especially in religious environments. And I'm curious, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say. And I'd love to kind of camp out here for a little bit because it's very nuanced. So I don't want to be black or white here. So what are your thoughts in that regard?
I mean, going off the context, which was my life and the experiences I had, I mean, honestly, Christine, I wasn't giving. The only one that I was giving to was myself. Candidly, I was hugely pursuing this, hustle culture route where if I build this beautiful kingdom for myself and check off all these boxes, then I will feel fulfilled. And candidly, even though I was at one point a young man that was hugely in pursuit of God, about when I was 27 years old, I had lost my father 5 years prior. I had lost another gentleman that was like a father figure to me. And I put my middle finger up to God. And I was like, if you're going to take these two people away from me who were so important to me, then I guess it's all on me. And so for the next decade, I was building my own kingdom. And then again, when it all came crashing down, I finally just sat there and said, you know what? What is this all for? And because, clearly building this metaphorical kingdom and all these things I'm trying to accumulate, they're not filling anything inside of me. And so I started going back on this journey, with God, and that is where things absolutely started to change. But I was still living with tons of shame, tons with resentments, tons of feeling unworthy.
So really what I'm hearing you saying, and add in color here, please, is
Yeah,
that if
yeah.
we're doing it for other people, we're still actually going to come up empty. If we're doing it for ourselves, we're going to come up empty. And there needs to be a deeper, more compelling why that is effectively vertical rather than horizontal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, it wasn't until, gosh, probably honestly within the last month or so, I started looking at a lot of my like professional life's work over the last 5 years and some really amazing projects that I'm working on right now. And I didn't realize the commonality behind them, even though they're extremely different things. And the underlying foundation for all of these companies is this idea of human flourishment and helping elevate people through, their personhood. And again, very different verticals, that we're working inside of. But I was like, man, this is my calling. This is what I'm here to do. And the reason why, somebody asked me the other day, why is this so important to you? And I said, because it's what I so desperately needed. Everything I am building and how I'm orchestrating partnerships or anything in my world right now have been around what I so desperately needed, whether it would have been in my teenage years, in early adulthood and those things. And I'm like, why do we build businesses and build lives around what everybody else says versus where we feel truly aligned, which, and I've got lots of thoughts on alignment and what that means and everything else. But so, and I just said, if I'm going to do something that my heart and my mind are in, where I feel the biggest impact and the biggest calling, like let's go all in and let's do it the right way, which is very different than how most people view business and life.
Yes. Yes. So, okay. So tell me, if you would, like, for somebody who's hearing this and they're like, okay, well, I hear what he's saying, that it wasn't fulfilling to do it all for him and build his own kingdom. It wasn't fulfilling to simply give it all away. What does it actually look like in practice to do it for, like you're saying, for God? And I actually think, you look back in history and you see like King Arthur and these tales of these heroes, Joan of Arc, who are going into battle, who are going and conquering and doing incredible missions. Like they're on a mission, but it's through something that is divine and innate, and man, are they led from within. And that's actually the Latin root of intuition is intuere, which means to be taught from within. So it's having that tether to the voice of God to know who are we and why are we here. How do people, I love that you said the human flourishment, like that was, you kind of realized that was your calling by way of realizing, this is actually what I needed. So how much is learning to hear God's voice and knowing what his call is for you versus, man, what are my problems and what am I going to solve? Like, how do those kind of go hand in hand? Because I think that there's a very practical aspect there that I love, but then also a spiritual one too.
Yeah, I wish I had some like linear mathematical way to put this together for people, but I probably don't. I just kept leaning into this idea of like, what am I, what are my gifts? Like, what am I really good at? And I was like, I'm a really good creator. I'm really good at solving problems. And it can be a downside sometimes too, because when people bring these problems to me, I feel like it's my obligation to somehow fix these things. And as I started looking at, businesses that I'm in, stuff that I have, created within the last year, and then newer things, again, very different, but what do they have in common? So when I really started to peel back the onion skin, it was like, yes, this is absolutely what I needed. And it is absolutely what so many other people need. And so as I kept leaning into those ideas and these gifts and stuff that I've been given, I just kept leaning into gratitude toward God, thank you for these things. And what was so interesting is through this process, and I can be an immense realist, and I only know what I know. But as I was putting together some of these business plans and things that we were working on and reverse engineering how we get there, as we were putting numbers together, I was just like, oh my gosh, if you would have told me these things 2 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. But what's interesting, and this is where I think the divine intervention, God, being on my heart, as I look at it now, I'm like, no, all things are possible. And this actually isn't that big. It's way bigger than anything I've done before, but it's not just me doing it.
So good.
And the other thing that I love, and honestly, almost tears in my eyes today as I was talking to some of the other stewards in this, I'm like, I have been so blessed within the last couple of years to meet some, I call us unicorns, but some of the most interestingly unique and capable, amazing humans that are out there. And they're all over the world in various places. As we're working on some of this, I'm like, guys, I know this sounds big and audacious, and some people will say we're crazy, but I promise you, if this is something that you truly feel aligned with, anything is possible. And I've seen over and over again where we see that there may be some sort of impossibility. Literally the next day, God shows up and it's like, oh, here's the connection that can do that thing. And it's like, how did this happen? And it feels so serendipitous, but I'm just seeing it over and over again. So again, going back to gratitude, and I just, every night I'm like, God, thank you so much for all these blessings and all these things. And I don't know how I am going to do this, but I know, but I know that with you and through you. And what's so crazy about it, Christine, is that I don't feel like an imposter in my own skin with some of this stuff, like other things that I've worked on before. This just feels so aligned.
Yes. I got just so encouraged hearing you share, Dustin, because really I think you nailed it. We can identify maybe the gifts or talents or the things that do light us up and the things maybe we're good at, maybe even our calling, but it is through the vision of like looking at the world through God's eyes, looking at ourselves through God's eyes, that transcends our ability to even dream, to be so much bigger. So it's almost like we come with like our little vision and it's like, God, is this right? And then he's like blowing fire on it and exploding it.
Well, and I think one of the other, beautiful things, and it's hard to see the beauty in the moment, I talked about gratitude and being thankful for everything every day, and it's the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And one of the things now that I'm super grateful for, again, wasn't in the moment, are the 20 some odd years of struggle. Because without the low lows and all of those things that we go through, we can't really appreciate the high highs and the calling. And in the moment, like when you're in the mud, you don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. And now I just have like this just massive, which is, part of the work that I'm doing now, this massive calling on my heart to help other people see it, to get out of their own way, for lack of a better term.
Dustin, how do you do that? How do you help people flourish?
Oh man. So we're in the infancy stages of some of the stuff that we're doing on the coaching side, but the biggest thing for me has been, and this is just so funny because here we're talking about I'm on the knowing show. The interesting thing for me is that it is not actually about knowing, and I think that's where most people get stuck. They're like, oh, if I just knew, then I could. I was a very intelligent young guy that read all of the books and did everything that one could imagine that I thought was going to create success and joy and all of these things. And I didn't need to know anymore. In fact, what I needed to do was to get curious about the behaviors and the habits and the things that kept showing up in my life. So, a part of my process is, I mean, yes, we need to create a level of awareness. What are these things that we are doing that we're not a super big fan of? Beyond that, though, where is that actually coming from? And for a lot of people, it just seems superficial. Like, oh, I'm not really sure. This is just what I do. And you and I both know, no, we're all wired beings. And a lot of what we do is a byproduct of our past experiences. So if we can uncover what those things are, and we've gone through this curiosity phase, then we can start to go, okay, and at least, what worked really well in my life was, now I understand where this came from. So when these triggers or whatever things happen in my life, I know that I'm reacting this way because of that, but this is not that. And so I can respond differently should I slow down and choose to. And then we start to look at, okay, well, and it was, a super simple thing for me, but it was like, okay, so if I don't want to do those things and I'm super aware of them and I know where they came from, what would this, and I don't even love this word, but what would this elevated or evolved version of me do differently? Well, it would do this. And it's like, okay, so let's start integrating those new behaviors, or we talked about habits last time very briefly, or rituals. What would I start doing differently? And then as we start to do things differently over time, we start to rebuild our own confidence in this new thing and this newer version of us. And then ultimately, our identity shifts and we're in this new state. And I think, and what I don't love about this process, we will not do this on here, but I went down some rabbit hole the other day because we were talking about this idea of the recovery system inside of the United States, and I don't even get triggered very much anymore. And I just viscerally was like, oh, and they're like, what is on your mind? Why does this bother you so much? And I said, you know what? One of the things that makes me so frustrated about how that system is broken is we expect perfection and everything is linear, and that is not life. And the same thing happens in just general change for people. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Somebody goes on a diet because they want to lose some weight. They eat one cupcake and then they're very upset. They live in a world of shame that now I am just fat and I can't eat healthy. And what happens? They go on a death spiral back towards the old identity instead of giving themselves some grace and just saying, hey, you know what? We did this thing and that is okay. We're super aware of it. But this version of me that I want to be wouldn't do this consistently. So, today wasn't a great day, but tomorrow is going to be better. And in the recovery system, that's just not a thing. Like, as soon as you have the drink or whatever it may be, all of a sudden you've relapsed, you start over at day one, you live in a world of shame. And I'm just like, man, that's just not how we aspire change in people. It doesn't need to be led with shame.
Wow. Okay. So, how do we break free? We talked about initially kind of getting that vision, like having a vision that is, we're identifying, okay, this might be my calling. This might be the thing that really is what I should pursue. Is that where we start? Or does it start somewhere else? For someone, let's say I'm caught in that spiral where I'm trying to change and I simply cannot because I keep getting in that shame. It's like that literally it's like the tornado. It's like once you get swooped up, man, you're stuck forever. So what would you say for someone who just continuously feels like they get swooped up again and again and they cannot get free?
Yeah, again, it's not necessarily the knowing. They know that they're doing it. I think the real thing is there has to be a place in where you get into true alignment. And so what do I mean by alignment?
Yes.
It is when logically, so our brain and our heart are running in the same direction. And so, and you'll hear some people, and I love mindset coaches because I get so frustrated with them because I'm like, it's not just mindset, and you're not even defining it correctly. Like when I think of mind, it is not brain. So brain is just what's in between your two ears. It's obviously where logic and all these things happen. When I think of the mind, it is everything from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes. So it's my brain, it's my central nervous system, it's all those synapses, it's everything. And so when I said earlier, when we are beings that are a byproduct of our past, where does a lot of our past live? It lives in our body. There's people that have chronic pain and illness and whatnot, and a lot of that now, and not to take away from autoimmune and all those things, but a lot of those things actually stem from not great negative experiences that their brain may have compressed, but it is living somewhere else inside of their body. And so, I love this idea. If you get into somatics and things, it's like, when you feel the feeling, feel it all the way through. Where do you feel it? And it's like, oh man, my left arm is like on fire and it's tense. And okay, like your body is literally telling you something. So when I think of mindset, which is more in align with alignment, it is all of this. It's not just my head saying, oh, I need to be disciplined and do my habits every day. Because I'll be honest, I feel like that's a metaphorical prison. When you just say, I'm going to do these things every day, whether I like it or not, that doesn't sound like a good life to me.
Right.
It sounds like a structured life for sure, but it doesn't give you any room for grace. For anything else to show up that may be more important than these things that you have to check off every single day. And so the biggest thing, like one of the biggest changes I had in my life was I stopped drinking. Why did I stop drinking? It had nothing to do with me knowing that it was bad for me. In fact, when people, and I mean, I went to school for exercise science and kinesiology. I mean, I know it's not good.
Yeah.
But it was such a part of my identity. And so when someone would say, man, you really should stop. And I said, I've never quitted anything. I'm not going to quit this. And finally, one day it is funny, but it is a crying shame because I wasted many, many years going down that rabbit hole. But finally, it was my younger son one day, and he was like, Dad, why do we keep going to this store? And he knew, he was 8, and he knew it wasn't great. And I'm like, well, we called it yucky water because when they were kids, if they saw glasses on the counter, it might have yucky water in it, so don't drink it. And that's terrible parenting, for the record. And he was like, Dad, why do we keep going here? And I said, well, I mean, we're picking up something for me and your mom. And he's like, but it's not good for you. And I'm like, I know it's not good for us, bud. But I said, this is what adults do, like when they want to have fun and like hang out with their friends and relax. And he goes, so you poison yourself to have fun and to relax and be with your friends? And I sat there for a minute, and he's a smart young man. And I sat there for a minute and I said, yeah. And he goes, well, would you want me to poison myself?
Your 8-year-old son literally had this conversation with you.
And this was like 2 days before New Year's Eve. And I'll never forget, 2 days later, I wake up, I feel absolutely terrible. And that was the thought that was running in my head. And I'm like, I would never want my son to feel this way. Also,
wow.
and I had made a commitment to him that day. I said, once this is gone, mommy and daddy won't drink anymore. And then and this is where the alignment comes in. So logically, I know it's bad. I've also told him I'm not going to do it. But also my heart was in it. I was like, I do not want my son to see that the people that he's supposedly supposed to love and trust the most are going to break their word. And so literally from that moment forward, I just said, this is not aligned with my head and my heart. So I just can't do this anymore.
Wow. It's so interesting in the chat. A friend of the show, DJ, he was commenting before you shared that example about the benefit of shame. And then right when you started sharing about your son, he was like, this is a positive benefit of shame. And I think that there's something really interesting about this. There's almost like the external shame that we feel from society, from people maybe that we respect, like we don't want to disappoint them. But then there's the inner shame, like that inner narrative that's I am statements versus it's external you are statements. And so I love that, to not be black and white, to your point about not being linear. It's like, all right, well, shame actually has a utility. And this was a beautiful example of that. That's so good. And what a good example of real alignment, of bringing that head and heart. And that's really to be vertically aligned, right? We can be so fixated on everyone around us and be so horizontally focused. So I love that, Dustin. So really, is it to really kind of get us going in that direction, to move us out of these cycles where we just keep feeling like we get drawn into? Do you have any questions, or even just a practice or a habit or a ritual that helps people get that coherence of like bringing it into alignment, mind and heart, if they know that they're stuck with eating, or maybe it's drinking, or saying words that they don't want to say around their children, or whatever it is?
I would love to say I had some simple framework or an acronym to like share with somebody. No, I mean, a lot of what I do, again, starts with the awareness and the curiosity. So, where are these things coming from? And then once we've identified that, and in the initial like feelings, emotions, and triggers and stuff that are associated with that, generally we can understand why we're doing what we're doing consistently. And it's addressing the root of it first, and then saying, oh, okay, well, again, this isn't that. And so if we say that, and we'll use weight loss or drinking, whatever we want to as the example, if we say that this is truly who we want to be or become, are we really serious about it, or are we just flirting with it? And for so many of us, because there's the external shame and there's internal shame too, absolutely. And I think the internal is a lot more powerful than the external. But for so many of us, again, we have one slip up. And then all of a sudden that shame just eats away at us. And we're like, I'm somebody who can't keep my word. So F it. This is just who I am. Instead of, to your point, I am statements. For me, for the longest time, it was that I am somebody who drinks. And then I finally just said, you know what? No, I don't have to continue to choose to be this.
Wow.
And now, and it hasn't even been but 7 months, now we live by the beach, and there's these cute little beach bars and all this stuff. And there are nights that my wife and I drive by and I'm like, that looks fun. And I'm like, no, it doesn't.
No. We know what's on the other side.
Yeah. And it's funny because one might say like, oh, it must be nice to be you, and you just were able to flip a switch and all of a sudden, this just wasn't a part of you anymore. And I've got dear friends that are in this recovery space too, that are like, man, I still struggle with it every day. And I think for me, the biggest thing, going back to this alignment, was that when I look at what God is calling me to do and how I need to show up every day to do those things, that thing, which was alcohol in this case, it isn't aligned with this bigger journey. So is that to say that I'll never drink for the rest of my life? I don't know, but I sure as heck won't do it for the same reasons I was doing it before.
Right. Dustin, it's getting to the inner why. It's like so often when we look at the operating systems of businesses, and I know that what you do with your entrepreneurs is that it's both business and personal, because they touch every part. But the operating systems of our lives, the operating systems of our businesses, it's kind of like, okay, what is the nucleus? If you were to peel back all the noise and all the layers and then get to this is it. And it's really like, what is the intrinsic motivation, the why and the core beliefs? That's why I so appreciated, as I was just kind of reading more about you and who you are in preparation for this show, you really target beliefs. And those have to change if we want any kind of behavioral change.
Correct.
So to have us kind of know, okay, how do we identify our beliefs? Like, what would you say? How would you kind of guide someone or advise someone to identify, okay, these are your core beliefs based on your behaviors, based on how you're living?
Honestly, and no shameless plug here, I think one of the most unique and interesting exercises I ever did was with Qasim when we were at that intensive a couple of months ago. And going through this, very invasive interview about our worldviews, our identity, and our constraints, which it was very much so about our business, And I ended up, as he even alluded to, saying, okay, I want to do this about my person as well, and deeply understand myself. And I think that's where it becomes real, because when it's just a conversation, in this case with this interview back and forth,
Right.
you're just speaking relatively matter of fact and everything's coming to fruition. And then when you read back these things about yourself, it's like, wow, this is very interesting, because this is like 99.9% me. I may not agree with this one thing, but it wasn't like you could game the system or anything like that.
Okay, so for everyone listening, do
And
you mind just kind of sharing what that was, just so you can really like help people understand?
oh gosh, yeah. So and here's what's so interesting. I signed up for this and I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. I was just like, oh, Costum's doing something, and
I love that.
I should just travel to Austin and go check it out. And so my whole thought was like, oh, we're going to learn like some master prompting and this kind of stuff, and it wasn't that at all. And the whole and I hope Costum is good with how I summarize this, but the whole premise of the whole thing was that we're using a trillion-dollar technology that we're asking very, in most cases, basic questions, and we're getting a lot of homogenized responses back to us that actually have no meaning to our business or our life. They're just summaries of mass amounts of information, which doesn't mean they're actually real in our world or our business. So, my takeaway was, okay, if I define how I view the world, the constraints as they exist in my business, and who I am, or how my business shows up, or our identity, then the answers that we get back are laser focused when we're using AI technology. So it's very, very specific to my use case versus this homogenized stuff that we were getting over and over again. And candidly, Christine, that took me down a heck of a rabbit hole. I've used what we started there to build first principles, core values, interviews and stuff for people, and so many other things. And now I've got a documentation library about stuff that I would have never imagined I would have put together, but it all started there.
So cool. I love that. I think honestly, he'd probably love to know that feedback. I think that perhaps is the most important pursuit for an individual,
Yeah.
is to know those answers. Especially,
Well,
go ahead, please.
Well, I was just going to say, most people don't even know who they are. I think the downside is, unfortunately, most of us get to adulthood and we start checking off the boxes in which we think we're supposed to, and we just go on autopilot. And I can't speak for all men, but I think so many of us are just numb to the realities of who we are, our emotions, what we're actually striving for in life, any of these things. And we just get on autopilot. And it's this really gross success hamster wheel. And you had mentioned earlier this idea of operating systems for business, and me working on operating systems for a person. What I think is so funny, because people view those as two separate things. They are not. Your business is a mirror of you, whether people want to admit it or not. It is. And John Maxwell would say this differently, law of the lid, but it is a mirror of you. All the dysfunctions that live in your business are a mirror of you. And all the things that are going really well in your business are a mirror of you. And so why is it so important? I mean, I have a marketing agency. And why was it so important for me to go down this rabbit hole? Because time and time again, I would notice that from a marketing perspective, we were killing it and we would still get fired. And why did we get fired? Because all marketing does is magnify what is true. And so it would magnify more and more good and dysfunction on the operations and leadership side. And I said, and I saw this in my own businesses, and I said, okay, if we really want to be a great small business growth agency, it cannot be just marketing. It has to be personal development. It has to be leadership development. It has to be business development. And we have to do all of these things, which is challenging to say the least. But that's why this is so important to me, because when we started our agency, and when I look back, I'm like, what a great name. Like our agency's name is BestLyfe Group.
Yeah.
And our whole idea was we wanted these small business owners to actually attain what they started business for in the first place. And through the years, I realized that is not possible through marketing alone.
So good. Okay, so I love this. We're very. I feel like we really are kindred souls. It's even just the fact that what we do for our professions is funny.
Yep.
Dustin, I would love to hear, what are your rituals or practices of getting back in alignment? You know, when you find yourself out of alignment, what do you do to really help yourself kind of get back on course?
So there are some things that I do that I know are really good for me, but I'll be honest, they've become such a part of me, like going to the gym and drinking my water and meal prep and those kinds of things that they're just second nature. So I don't even consider those so much anymore. It's just a natural part of my being and who I am. The things that I very intentionally do at this point, again, the prayers of gratitude every evening. It is something that it is the last thing I do every single day. And some people do it first thing in the morning. I just love this idea of going to bed being thankful. And so that has been something that has been like just so great in my world. The other thing that I do that has been super helpful for me, meditation. And what is interesting, especially if you're a Christian or somebody who prays, and I'll never forget, my coach said this to me, probably a year ago. He said, "I love it that you are so after God's heart and you pray daily. However, prayer is when you are talking to God. Meditation is when you listen." And I was like, "Oh man!" And sometimes I like to be punched in the face, and that was a punch in the face. And I was like, "Okay, I am not
Yes.
listening enough to God." And
Yes.
so and
Wow.
many forms of meditation that you can do. But for me, I do gratitude meditations, I do visualizations, I do
Mm,
everything I can to do these nice quiet ones where you're just sitting there trying to listen, which is still very challenging for
yes.
me.
Yeah.
um, the other thing that I do that really really helps me, there are studies that show that people that are in the arts have higher IQs, emotional intelligence, are more likely to win Nobel Peace Prizes, all of these things. And that is not what I'm trying to go after with this. But I had to find some sort of creative outlet. And so
Mm.
for me, it has been
So
writing.
nice. Yes.
It has been, and not even just like writing, just to write. Some people are like, oh, I want to journal. Yes, I do those things.
Yeah.
I have written letters to myself from former ages. I have written, my gosh, I wrote, and this is a very interesting exercise for anybody to do, my own obituary
Mm.
for what I aspire to
Mm.
accomplish while I'm here. I have done like songwriting and stuff,
Oh,
because there's something beautiful about a letter, but there's something else more beautiful about something that is words that have a melody. It's more memorable.
yeah.
I have written
Wow.
short stories about experiences that I've had in my life, and what I love about those is it's so therapeutic in the moment, and you can relive it
Mm.
over and over again should you choose to. And so there are many times that I've went back and read a lot of these things that I've put together. I mean, even one recently that was a very emotional read. Um, my coach and I were having a conversation about, it would have been so cool for you to write a letter from future you to you today. And I'm like, yeah, that would have been really great. And I could do that. Well, I actually did, and I forgot. And I
Oh,
leveraged AI with my own voice and forgot I had an audio overlay for it. And I was driving somewhere. It was after I purchased a new car that I was super excited about, and I had pulled it up and I had listened to it. And it was supposed to be me when I'm 43, which is several years down the road still. And I was like, man, everything that I wrote
wow.
is coming to life now.
Wow.
And so a lot of those things, the meditation, the prayer, obviously the exercise, and those things are great. Those are things that help get me grounded. And I
Mm.
think that's something that is so important for people, because we live in this society where it's always go, 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 go,
Mm.
instead of pause.
Mm.
And it forces me to pause.
Right. Right. Gosh, I love. It's funny, Dustin. I have not heard. I don't think I've heard anybody on my show for the last year plus emphasize the intense importance of cultivating the right hemisphere of the brain, because it's beyond just becoming emotionally intelligent. It really is
Yes.
the creativity and fostering that. And in order to even access creativity, we actually have to come to this place of our own ability to get vulnerable with ourselves to create something, because it
Yeah.
is messy. Creation is a messy process. And it's to your point about you called out, we live in a culture that is it's too linear, but it's also seeking perfection. And within the confines of perfection, creativity cannot exist. And so I'm just so grateful for that call out. I think for every single person listening, I hope that we all take this as kind of a charge and an encouragement to go inward and consider, what would be a life-giving, encouraging process for exploring creativity. And maybe it actually doesn't feel life-giving right at the beginning because it does feel vulnerable and it's like, I'm scared. But to that point about songwriting or singing or drawing or painting or whatever it is, man, it's the outpouring. Like what we end up finding is that something comes out of us. It's really, truly creation. And in the creation, we become it's now we're actually living really in alignment with who we were created to be, modeling the creator. Like we are actually intended to create, every single one of us. And yet we become so stuck in consumerism. And so that is actually the antithesis of who we are created to be, the consumer versus the creator. And so I really appreciate that.
And to go back to childhood though, at least for most of us. I mean, you have these aspirations to be in ballet, to play baseball, to go build something with your friends, and then we get to a point in life where all of a sudden we're concerned about, well, I don't want to go do improv, or I don't want to go learn how to play golf because I'm not going to be good at it at first.
Yeah.
And I don't want other people to laugh at me or say whatever. We're so concerned about everybody else, so we play small. Instead of, going back to, we say this in like development world and stuff about, playing in a sandbox. Let's get in a sandbox environment and build. And I'm like, no, we should still do that as adults.
Right.
We absolutely should. And I think if you asked majority of adults, like, what are your hobbies? What are the things that you love? And then you hear their responses. Oh, it's either I don't have time for that, or they'll say something like I used to, like, oh, I go to the gym. And it's like, well, you should do that anyway because it's good for you. That's like taking a shower. And you're like, oh,
I clean my body. Good.
Yeah. Or I used to say like, oh, like I work on these AI projects. And it's like, yeah, it might be something for you, but it's still like work-based. Like, what do you do to just slow it down, to actually find joy? And most people don't have an answer for that. It's like, we don't live this whole entire existence just for material things and to say we accomplish stuff. We actually should enjoy it.
Which frankly comes back to this question of why do I still feel unworthy? And I think that to that point, we actually, if we have that fundamental belief around our own worthiness, we cannot really enter into joy because do we deserve it? So talk to me a little bit about that. I know we're kind of running out of time here, but I just would like to hear your thoughts in that regard.
I mean, I could go so many places here, but one of the first things that comes to mind, a lot of the people that I know, myself included, that have accomplished what we would consider great things, the younger version of them that still lives in them somewhere, honestly has this part of them that consistently feels shame and unworthiness because they've done some things they're not proud of. And whether this be, infidelity, drinking too much, screwing over a business partner, you name it. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that we all at surface level would say is bad. And I'll never forget saying this to somebody at a retreat before. He grew up in LA. He was in gangs, had done lots of wild things that he was not willing to share. And he was like, and he was still constantly in this hustle game inside of his businesses, trying to just prove. And he was working himself to death. And he was like, I just don't understand. I don't feel like I am ever worthy of joy. And I just said, man, why would you say that? And he said, because I've done so many bad things. And I said, just because you've done bad things does not make you a bad person. And so interesting, a lot of times in any of my own, coaching type environments and stuff, what comes out of my mouth is also exactly what I need to hear for myself.
Yeah.
And I sat there for a moment and I was like, man, I need to hear this too. And I'm like, you know what? I know God has forgiven me. I know that friends, my wife, other people have forgiven me for these, not good things that I've done in my life. Why can't I forgive me? And then I had to just sit there and lean into the more logical side of me, which is, But if these people have forgiven me and they're the ones that I actually hurt, and if God has forgiven me for abandoning him for 10 years and trying to build my own kingdom and everything else, if I'm truly after his heart, am I greater than him, that my own feelings are more important than his? No.
Whoa, chills.
So, well, and so and then finally, and it was literally in that moment, I'm like, and this is very hard to do, but I had to go look at myself in the mirror and say, I love you and I'm proud of you and I forgive you. And you have got to stop living in this world of shame.
Do you believe that God views us as worthy?
I do. Yes.
Dustin, I think that when we consider what are those core beliefs, it's like how much of my core beliefs are actually in alignment with God's beliefs. And maybe somebody doesn't have that as the anchor for their soul or belief systems or worldviews. But then what is? And I think we need to consider like what is the anchor? To what am I tethered in terms of something greater and outside of me to which I adhere my life? And this becomes a really, really important question, because if indeed God is saying, the creator is saying that I am worthy, then to say anything other is to actually, to your point, have that's talk about ego, talk about pride, and so we were reading A Course in Miracles, I guess a couple months ago, and it was talking a little bit about this whole concept of effectively to not walk in the fullness of who God says you are is to do exactly what you just said, which is to elevate yourself above God and say,
Yeah.
oh, I understand. I know. I am actually not worthy. And when God's like, what? I'm the one that created you. Like, I know. So, and so to that point, it's, I think that then it's like, okay, well, how do you know God thinks you're worthy? And you can go down a whole bunch of rabbit holes with that. But I think that that's a really, really important question of what does God actually believe about us? What is his opinion? What is his heart? What is his vision?
Yeah. And I don't think many of us even know that. And we've not even tapped into it. And I think a lot of this unworthiness that we feel too is because we've never experienced what he has in store for us. And a lot of times, and I am the worst at quoting scripture, but I love this idea that for those who have, and I will say steward it well, will receive more. And that those who do not, well, the opposite is true. And so when I had first heard, whatever the real translation of that is, not the Dustin Lunde translation, when I first heard that, I'm like, man, that sounds kind of terrible. So if those who have lots of stuff get more stuff, and those who have nothing get nothing, well, why would God do that? And I'm like, oh, but when you look at the stewardship of it, and then and that's where this daily gratitude came into for me. It was like, you know what? Why don't I just stop asking for more? Because maybe I'm not stewarding well my family, my business, myself, and so many other things in my life. And once I can show God that I can steward these things well, then maybe by the grace of him, then I will get more. And that's where all these other things in my life have started manifesting themselves from. And I'm like, and I even sit in this is, before we jumped on here about this idea of unworthiness, I was wrestling with it last night. Why these projects? Why this calling? Why something that is so infinitely bigger than anything I would have ever thought my life would be able to accomplish? And interestingly enough, he keeps putting the right people and the right everything in my life, and all this stuff is starting to come to fruition. And so instead of living in this life of, unworthiness, like, why me? Don't ask me to do this. I'm like, man, this is way bigger than anything I ever thought I would accomplish. But you know what? With you and through you, we can do all things, right?
Let's go. Let's go. Y'all, I am so glad for all of our sakes that we got to tune in to you, Dustin. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I feel charged to allow for my own dreams to be bigger, and at the same time, honestly, exist in gratitude and just be like, okay, where can I be more faithful? So that to whom much is given, much he shall receive. It's like, okay, am I going to be faithful with that? And so this is just so timely, so wise, and I'm grateful for you, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Grateful for you as well.
How can people follow along with your journey? You've got a podcast.
Oh
BestLyfe.
man, yeah. So yeah, we do. So we do have a podcast called Life by the Horns, and it's LYFE.
Mhm.
Life by the Horns. It started about this whole entrepreneurship journey. It has absolutely pivoted within the last couple of months. A lot more about internal healing, people's journeys, impact of business. We still do a lot of entrepreneurship stuff, but it is definitely evolved over time. So Life by the Horns, you can find us there. Check out our agency. If you
Yeah.
need some holistic help, bestlifegroup.com, and that also has a Y in it. Or just follow me on social media. I think the links and stuff are in here. And we joked about this when we first jumped on. My first name's actually William. So all of my handles are
Very
w.dustin.lunde.
confusing.
Yeah. So I'll apologize for my parents on that one. But yeah, would love to connect with anybody and honestly just have a conversation, because I think one of the things that we're all here to do, and my coach shared this with me, and I just love this idea. It's we're all just here to walk one another home.
Mm,
And
that's beautiful.
it's for me, it's not all about business and opportunities and those things. Sometimes it's just about having good conversations with good people like yourself.
Yeah. Likewise. Well, thank you so much, Dustin. Y'all, thank you so much for joining. I will see you tomorrow on The Knowing Show.